Our next guest is an aspiring reporter from Troy Athens High School, Taryn Fritzching, who's passionate about sports, and she's here to share that passion with us. Taryn, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. You know, one of the first reporters I had the privilege of meeting when I moved here back in 2015 was Jennifer Hammond at Fox 2 in Detroit. She's been a staple here for now, I guess, more than 20 years. And it was after a Pistons game up at the Palace of Auburn Hills. And she was cool to me from day one. So you had a chance to talk with her recently. How cool is she?
She's great. I've known her since I was about 7 years old, and she would be covering training camp. And she's just always been such a great person to talk to. And I've kind of grown up and I've maintained that relationship with her. And then I was able to interview her, and she was just as amazing as when I first met her.
So what'd you guys talk about?
So I first started the interview with asking her just about how she got her job at Fox Sports because she's been in that position for a little while. And then I kind of asked her about how she approaches every interview and like what her style was. And then I also asked her what what advice she would give to any aspiring sportscasters. And then I asked her who her favorite Detroit sports team was to cover.
Is there any advice that she told you that maybe you hadn't heard that you'll carry with you?
She had a few questions that she was going to ask, but then she just kind of went with the flow of how the interview went, and that'll really stick with me just because I can't just expect what I know that they're going to say because they can say anything at any given point in time. And so I'm definitely going to keep that when I do my next interviews.
Yeah, no, that's great advice. Sound advice from one generation to the next. Jennifer Hammond sitting down with Sportscaster.com's Taryn Fritzching.
Today I'm here with Fox 2 Detroit's own Jennifer Hammond. Thank you for coming on the show. It's great to have you, and welcome.
Thank you. We've known each other for a few years now. I have followed your career as you have followed mine, so it feels only right that we do this together.
So how did you really get your way into sports broadcasting?
I feel fortunate that I can say this. I think when I was probably in 7th grade, I first saw Phyllis George on TV on the NFL on CBS with Irv Cross, Brent Musburger, Jane Kennedy. And I was so enamored with the fact that there were women talking about sports. And I've always loved sports. I've been really competitive since I was a young girl. I played softball like in the City League in Birmingham. But my dad, going way back to even when I was 5 or 6 years old, first put a tape recorder in front of me. And I do think this is where I kind of found my voice and an audience in my older sister, Deb. And I picked up the microphone, and I still have a tape recording of me saying, "Hello, sports fans." And that was when I was very, very young, before I even actualized the fact that I had seen Phyllis George and knew that I wanted to be a sports broadcaster. But it's just always been in my heart, and I was determined to make it happen. Sometimes when I'm having a day where I think, oh, I'm tired, or oh, I've worked such a long day, whatever, when something's going on or something extraneous happens, I think, I'm living my dream.
Yeah.
And I cannot ever take that for granted, and nor do I.
So how long have you been in the industry?
So I graduated from Seaholm High School in 1983. Mm-hmm. When I was at Seaholm, I was in the television production class, second hour, with Mr. Tarrant. And I used to read the morning announcements with a very dear friend of mine, Beth Jones. We would sit on the set of WSTB, which was Seaholm's morning broadcast. And we would read the morning announcements, scores from last night, from previous events, what was coming up, games for the day, news and notes for students. And it would air on the monitors throughout the school and in the front lobby and whatnot. And so that was really my first start on camera, which was really fun. And then when I went to Western Michigan University, I was pursuing, obviously, a broadcast communications degree and a journalism and English double minor. And I worked for the sports information department at Western, which was really incredible. And I was very raw and fresh. And I still loved football, though, and I learned not to cheer in the press box. I learned all the things you need to learn about the decorum of being a member of the working media. And so it's kind of just continued from there with various jobs, both directly related to sports and indirectly. in my mind, it's never a straight line to get where you want to go.
Absolutely.
The best path is the road less traveled because you have so many more experiences with people and jobs, things like that help you in life.
So since you got into broadcasting, what has changed, especially with you being a female in a very male-dominated area?
Well, one thing I will say proudly is that there are a lot more women doing what I do and what you do and want to do and are going to do. I know you're going to do it. There's so many more young ladies out there pursuing careers. There's so many more opportunities for girls, just even through streaming and team websites and in-studio hosts at games. You see women who start as an in-stadium host and then they work their way up with the teams. Daniela Bruce, for instance, she did some in-studio hosting, I believe, for the Tigers. And then she started doing stuff in the broadcast booth. And now she's going to be doing the full-on fan duel. She was an intern of ours at Fox 2. So she's a great example. Danny Rogers as well is the team reporter for the Detroit Lions, as you know. So she does most of her content, the majority of her content through DetroitLions.com, but she also works for the Big Ten Network.
Yeah.
She works for NFL Network at times. She does stuff on our station on Fox 2 for some of the Lions pregame shows. So it's really diversified in all of the opportunities that exist for young women and girls to get a start and really pave their way into major markets or even have their first job be just at a less visible platform in a major market. It's so cool. And I love it because for me, I'm a girl at heart. I love football, but I love girls who love football. So it's so cool to have girls who could be who are my kids' age and to be able to, I learn from them as much as they learn from me. So it's a great partnership.
Next, I want to head into you as an interviewer yourself. First off, how would you describe yourself and how would you describe your style when you're asking interview questions?
Well, blunt and authentic. I think that's really kind of been my calling card. My nickname is the Hammer, and I don't think it's any coincidence that it kind of fits. I don't take no for an answer often. I'm a strong-willed person, but I also find that it really is important to lead with the human element. I've often tried to treat people like I want to be treated.
Yeah.
And I really think that goes for any profession or anywhere in life. Anywhere you are, if you're at the grocery store, if you're at school and you see a custodian, treat people how you want to be treated, no matter who they are, what they do. And I just feel like I've always led with my authenticity. I don't try to be something I'm not.
Yeah.
I think my greatest weakness is that I have a little bit of ADD and I turn fast and, things distract me. But that's also been my greatest strength because in an interview situation or a scrum or a locker room where we've got, 20 minutes, 10 minutes to bang out like 6 interviews, I can just knock stuff out. I've learned over the years, too, that you never stop learning and you never stop improving. Even 27 years in at Fox 2, I'm continually trying to get better, to study more, to learn more, to ask, interesting questions, things that I feel like viewers would love to see, and also just be me. People can tell when you're putting on something that's not authentic and genuine. And I do think people don't know what they like. They like what they know. And when they feel like they know me, then they'll like me. And I've gotten great feedback over that. It's not something I tried to create. It wasn't anything that was contrived, but it just happened that way. And it's really worked well for me.
So speaking of when you said that you'll only have 10 to 20 minutes to get out interviews, do you tend to go into those interviews with more questions, or do you just kind of make them up on the spot based off of what the interviewee says?
So actually both. And that's what I would say to any aspiring journalist or broadcaster is make sure that you have the base of what your story might be. And when you're doing scrums, you also get the answers from questions that other people ask. So a lot of times I'll have my plan formulated, but also feed off of and further explore questions that people ask that are interesting and lend to my story.
Do you ever get nervous?
Not really. I feel like I thrive on adrenaline. I shouldn't say I get good nerves. Like for me, I've turned nerves into excitement. I feel like worry and regret are the two most useless emotions in life, right? You can't change anything, so don't regret it. Learn from it, but you can't regret it because something always, you learn something from every experience, good or bad. And I try not to worry too much because I feel like then it gets in your head and you start to second guess and you overthink. So I like to go into things prepared, but I feel like a nervous energy can really work to your benefit in broadcasting. I love live television. I love being live. I'll plan what I'm going to say a little bit, but I also like moments to unfold authentically and for people to see what we're seeing, like, hey, Kent, I'll say to my camera guy, I'll say his name, or Jeff on the air, look over here, Cade Cunningham warming up, and he'll do a slam behind me. We'll be like, we got it. I really love the whole energy and excitement of a live broadcast. It's a thrill and it's a feeling that I can't get doing anything else.
Yeah. So then speaking of you being on air, kind of like how we are right now, do you ever find it difficult to come up with what you're going to say while you're live on air?
No, I spent a lot of time in radio leading up to my television career. And I think that if there's one place when people ask me, what would you say to aspiring broadcasters? I would say, get your feet wet doing it all. Yeah. And radio is tremendous because it's just talking. All the camera does is put your face up there while you're talking. And I feel like people get so caught up in, oh, what am I doing with my hands? Breathe, be natural, be yourself like you are. I mean, you're the same Taryn now that I see when I see you at Lions training camp or in the training practice facility. It's just talking, it's just TV, and things still go wrong every day in our business. But I always like to say, and it may sound a little direct and crass, but nobody gets hurt and nobody dies in what we do. It's just TV, and we're here to inform and entertain along the way. If you just can't be relaxed and be yourself in doing that and present the information in an honest way, then maybe it's not for you.
Yeah, I can understand that.
There's so much good stuff right now to talk about in Detroit, above and beyond the sports, just where the city is. And this as being a Detroiter, there's a buzz in the air between the draft, the auto show, the opening of the Central Station, everything that's been going on in the city of Detroit. And then you throw on top of that the Lions winning. Yeah. The Pistons are now winning. The Tigers went on an unexpected playoff run last fall, which was terrific, which was so much fun. The energy in our city right now, it's contagious. It feels so good to be able to talk about things that I'm passionate about. And the city of Detroit is one of those things. And the sports are just, an extension of that.
So heading into not only me, but any viewers watching, obviously you've had a long amount of time in the industry, but what advice would you give to aspiring sports broadcasters that want to get into this field?
Never say no to any opportunity, any day, any time, any place, anything. If it's goat rodeo and you've never covered a goat rodeo and you know nothing about it, don't say no. Go in, learn as much as you can, and you'll learn even more, and you'll learn more about yourself and how you can handle a situation that you're not totally comfortable in. And then what do you know? You've got experience as a goat rodeo analyst. I think any single thing that you can say yes to in your career. I worked for free for many years trying to get a tape together when I was in the city of Chicago. So when I graduated from Western Michigan, I went to Chicago and I was looking for a job in radio because I had worked in radio in Kalamazoo at an easy listening radio station. And they also had a country station that aired some sporting events. And so I just had that radio experience. So I went to Chicago to try to get a job. And I will tell you one thing that a man said to me, a gentleman who worked at a station. He said, he was the only person that would see me that day. I was pounding the pavement, taking around my resumes and my tapes back in the day before there was internet. Yeah. And you could send all your stuff on, through the internet. But I walked in and the woman at the desk said, oh, well, he'll see you. And I walked in and I sat down and I was so excited and honored that someone would take the time to speak to me. So I sat down and we were talking and he said, you know what? I've got some advice for you. And I was like, oh my gosh, okay. And I was like ready to just soak it all in. And he said, go back to Kalamazoo. And I took a breath. I don't even know what I said to him. Maybe I said, thank you for your time. Have a nice day. I walked out. I didn't let him see me upset, but I got downstairs back onto Michigan Avenue and tears started to stream down my face. But I decided then that I was never going to let, and this is the other point of advice that I give to any aspiring anybody, whatever you want to be, doctor, a lawyer, a teacher, anything. Don't let someone define your dream for you. And don't let anyone tell you you can't. It empowered me. It taught me that I was going to show him. It really emboldened me to make sure that I could prove that guy wrong. And many, many years later, I actually worked for him at a radio station, and he did not remember the interaction.
Oh, gosh. That's wow.
Isn't that serendipitous? You know, it was interesting. But so just never, Taryn, never let anyone tell you you can't.
That's great. That actually very much inspired me.
Mm-hmm.
I got rejected from a sports journalism camp last summer. And it was because they mainly take juniors and seniors. So I was a sophomore at the time. But
Right.
I texted my co-host on my podcast. I was like, hey, I just got rejected from this thing. I was pretty upset. And what she told me, and that's always stuck with me, is she said that rejection is just redirection. And so that's stuck with me ever since.
That is tremendous. I'm going to steal that one. And it's a lesson. It's a great place to learn. And because you learn about yourself and how you handle it.
Mm-hmm. And then to wrap it up, I'm going to ask a fun question because you've been in and around the city of Detroit, and especially after this season with the buzz of the Lions, the Tigers, Pistons, and the Red Wings, who has been your favorite team, or which is just your favorite team to cover?
Gosh, that's so hard. Because when I'm in the moment, when I was in the moment with the Lions, it was thrilling. The game against Minnesota.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Was incredible. But even going back to last year, the end of the 23 season into the playoffs, when they beat the Rams and the Bucks, I don't think I've felt that kind of joy in the city of Detroit since the Red Wings won the Stanley Cup in 1997 for the first time.
Into the zone, the Detroit Red Wings on the Stanley Cup champions!
There were tears of joy. And mostly it was, and it'll get me a little emotional even saying it right now, but it's because for the fans, for the people that have been through so much. And as you've seen, and as we've all seen in Detroit, Lions fans are a different breed. Mm-hmm. They have been through it, man. They have stuck by this team. And a lot of them say, oh, I've disowned them. I've no more Lions for me. Same old Lions. I'm moving on. They still care. And that was an incredible journey. And I just feel like it was kind of the catalyst to lift and carry the entire city of Detroit into this next phase of development and respect and grit. All of the things that Detroit is about, those Lions showed us. And I feel like a lot of the other teams fed off it. Even AJ Hinch would refer to it and reference the Lions and their run and the grit that they play with. And the Pistons now are using the term grit. It's one of their core values that's on the wall in the arena. Every single coach right now that is in a position, in their position with the respective sports in Detroit, I think these are the four best that we've ever had the whole time I've covered. And this is 30 years. Since 1994, I've been covering sports in Detroit. The four head coaches we have right now between Dan Campbell, AJ Hinch, Todd McClellan, and JB Bickerstaff are the most qualified, authentic, intuitive, great leaders that I've ever seen simultaneously leading these teams. And I hope that we get to see every team have a postseason run for the first time in Detroit sports history.
Thank you so much for your time.
Always.
Don't let someone define your dream for you. If you take anything from that interview, that's about as good as it gets. That was Taryn Fritzching. Her dad, Chris, is the public address announcer at Ford Field. And you just heard from longtime Detroit sports reporter Jen Hammond. And that is our show for this week.